So, hi everyone. Welcome to our very first episode of Aria's More Than One video series, where we will go inside the different nationalities and culture of the AAPI community. It is important for all of us to understand the Asian American Pacific Islanders are not just one homogeneous group. In fact, there are so many nationalities and languages spoken by our 17,000 ARIA members. Well, today I'm thrilled to welcome my predecessor, our past president, Tom Truong here, to talk about Vietnam. Vietnam has almost 100 million people and is known for its beaches, rivers, beauty, and incredible cities. And for those who are 40 or younger, they hardly know about the Vietnam War. And now, instead, they think of Vietnam as one of the coolest places in the world. So, welcome to our very first episode, Tom.
All right. Well, Amy Kong, thank you so very much, Madame Presidente, for inviting me on to this very first premiere episode, right, of More Than One. Amy, I think that your leadership points to how you want to bring out the diversity in the AAPI community. And today we're going to talk about my homeland, Vietnam, and I thank you for bringing Vietnam up, right? So yeah, Amy, Vietnamese is basically the official language in Vietnam. But did you know that now English is the second most common language that Vietnamese prefer to speak? And then
Oh, really?
after that, yeah, and after that, there's Chinese, there's Khmer, and believe it or not, French, because the French once colonized Vietnam, right? And
Yeah.
about 80 to 90% of Vietnamese folks are basically uh, about 80 to 90% of Vietnamese are born in Vietnam, of the population, I should say. And just in Vietnam, we have three different dialects. We have the northern dialect, the central dialect, and the southern dialect. So when I went back
Oh,
to
wow.
Vietnam, yeah, when I went back to Vietnam, when I brought my kids there, I grew up in southern Vietnam. And when we went up all the way up north, can you believe it? Even though it's the same Vietnamese language, I could
Mm.
hardly understand them and they could hardly understand me. Weird.
All right. So, Tom, I'm looking forward actually to learn how you ended up living in Boston. But first, can you talk about how and where you grew up?
Sure. So I grew up in Saigon. Saigon is in the southern part of Vietnam. It was once the capital of southern Vietnam. It is a city, a metropolis, hustle and bustle. If you imagine the streets full of bicycles and mopeds going back and forth and crossing intersections, those crazy YouTube videos that you see of Vietnam where people cross intersections, that was where I lived, right? In the heart of it all. And we picture like New York City, but crowded and loud and noisy, but also extremely fun. There's a lot of street food there, street food vendors where we could go and enjoy the foods, right? I remember, Amy, our home sat on a corner of a street, and inside our home, it was a gated community because it's not so safe, to be frank, right? But right outside of our gates, there were vendors right outside. And I remember one summer, my father put in a swimming pool, an above ground swimming pool. And one of the most favorite things that we liked to do, my brothers and sisters, was to jump off of the diving board and splash the water into the vendors outside. And they hated it, but we loved it. That's where I grew up.
So I know that before 1975,
Mhm.
it was essentially only the wealthy and well connected who came to the US. But then there was a massive middle class migration. So, can you tell us what happened?
Sure. So the fall of Saigon to the northern Vietnam, the communists came basically between the April 28th to April 30th, 1975. And my family basically emigrated and left and fled the country basically on the very last day on April 30th, 1975. We had actually attempted to leave 3 days before, 2 days before, but we were unsuccessful. So on that very last day, my mom basically made a very desperate move to make
Mm.
sure that we got out of the country because we didn't want to live in under a communist regime, right? She wanted to allow us to have the freedom, the personal freedom and the financial freedom. So we fled Vietnam, and our goal, my mom's goal, I should say, is to come to the United States of America. A church basically sponsored us
Oh,
from Brookville, Ohio. It was a
mm,
farming community, and thank goodness for that church that they reached out and they said, "Hey, we're going to sponsor this Vietnamese family," and we landed in Brookville, Ohio, right before school started, right?
mm,
And we went to school in Brookville, Ohio for 1 year. My
mm,
older sister Angie had repeated her senior year in high school.
mm,
And after she graduated high school, my mom asked the church and our sponsors, "Hey, where's my daughter going to go to college?"
mm.
And the answer was, "Nobody here goes to college," right? Because we're a farming community. Of
Uh-huh.
course, my mom did not realize that. So she frantically that summer wrote letters and wrote letters, as many letters as she can find. And she found one intern, medical intern here in Boston, Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, "Well, if you're willing, you and your 6 kids would willing to come and live in a 2 bedroom with me, my wife, and our young daughter. We'll retreat to 1 bedroom. You guys can have the other bedroom and the living room and the dining room. You can stay with us." So
Ah,
that's when we packed up and we took the
mm.
Greyhound bus to Boston. That's how I ended up in Boston.
Wow, your mom is smart, huh? The Vietnamese seems to be spread out all over the US. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, the Vietnamese population is spread throughout. Well, remember, during that time, during the Vietnamese immigration period, there were like 5 different camps that the U.S. set up all around the United States, right? The
Mm,
one of the camp was Guam, where we were at. Another
mm,
one was Camp Pendleton in San Diego, California, Amy. A third one was Fort Indian Town Gap, Pennsylvania.
uh-huh.
The fourth one was Chaffee, Arkansas, and Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. So right there and then, it all depended on where the luck of the draw, where you ended up for a camp, and then who would sponsor you. And
Ah,
that's how the Vietnamese got all spread out. But over
oh,
time, right, over time, the Vietnamese wanted to make sure that they come together,
mhm,
to be close to their culture, to eat the same food, talk the same language, associate with each other. And so they ended up in California, a very highly populated state with Vietnamese, Texas, Washington, Florida, Virginia, and then Massachusetts, where I ended up. That's where
ah,
we spread everywhere. Yeah.
right. Okay, now you make, everything makes sense now, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking at the ARIA State of Asia America report. I like that report very much. So I dig out a lot of interesting information from there and saw some interesting thing there. There are 1.9 million Vietnamese Americans here. Tom, the Vietnamese American homeownership rate is like 65.9%, closer to 66%.
Mhm.
Why do you think it is higher than the 60% mark of all the AAPI community?
That's interesting.
Mm,
So well, when you think about it, the Vietnamese abandoned their homeland, Amy. They
mhm,
abandoned their homeland to flee to a new world, right? And that meant leaving our possessions. That meant leaving our homes. We basically gave up our homes completely. And so, man, I think that our priority, at least my mom's priority, was as soon as she was able to
mhm,
buy a home, that's what she did. And this is how we bought our home, Amy.
mm.
She went around and she borrowed $100 here, $500 there, $300 here, $1,000 there to come up with the down payment, so that we were able to put up enough of a big enough down payment, because she didn't have that much credit coming into the United States, right? But that's how we wanted to have home ownership as soon as possible,
Mhm.
and the median and the cost of housing might be a little bit higher than the general average as well, Amy. Why?
Mhm.
Because I think the Vietnamese have generational living, right? Where the parents live with the grandparents, and maybe the children have children, so they want to rely on the grandparents for free babysitting too.
That's very true. Very similar to the Chinese too. So one thing is like, do Vietnamese like to live near to their family as well?
I think so. I mean, I think to the best of our abilities, we want to be close to our family. I
Mhm.
mean, the family unit. I think just like most other Asian countries, is very important that we
Mhm.
want to stay close together. My
Mhm.
family actually ended up spreading out all over the place because jobs took us to other places, and
Mhm.
also um, preference in climate and warmer climate took my older brothers and sisters to California, to
Oh,
Florida, to Texas for obvious reasons, right? Lower cost of living and better climate. I'm stubborn. I still stuck around Massachusetts and stick around in this cold, but maybe soon. But when Chloe and Olivia are done with school, maybe Marissa and I will travel more to warmer weathers.
who knows? Maybe we will be neighbors soon.
Yes, yes, yes.
We are also, Tom, we are also seeing a new breed of Vietnamese immigrants.
Yeah.
How do they differ from the people from back in the old times?
Sure. So there's, I would say that the new breed of Vietnamese who's coming into the United States as of late could probably come from two different aspects. Number one is the Family Reunification Act, right?
Mhm.
The Family Reunification Act, where family is already here and they reach out to family there and they do the paperwork legally to get them sponsored over here. Right.
Mhm.
When you do that, the family who's sponsoring them have to show that they have financial capacity, financial ability to take care of the family that they're sponsoring into the United States. I would say that's the first group. And that's what my mom did. And our
Mhm.
whole family came together to sponsor the folks in from 1979 to 89 to 99, all the way through now. And the
Mhm.
second group right now is coming from the very affluent Vietnamese. Vietnamese as a country, as an economy, is pretty strong these days. And so
Mhm.
they want to send the kids to the best schools, to
Ah,
the best universities. And so they're sending the kids here. And of course, I'm prejudiced in terms of feeling like the United States of America is the best country ever, right? But I think a lot of Vietnamese also believe that the USA has a much higher standard of living than in Vietnam. And so they want to come here for a better life, higher standard of living.
wow, I see. So, Tom, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm 100% sure that you guys worked very hard to get to where you are today. So, congratulations to all of your achievement. But in the meantime, I also wanted to know more, right? Because you get me so interested in it. I wanted to ask some quick hit question for you. Okay, are you ready?
Quick hit questions. All right, fire away. Let's go. The favorite Vietnamese food is pho, right? Beef noodle soup. And
Mm.
sometimes I mix it up with chicken noodle soup. But man, I love pho. My favorite American food is what we're gonna have tonight when I go out with my kids. Delmonico steak, one of the best steak out there with roasted. I like roasted sweet potatoes,
Mm.
and then a side of asparagus and green beans. My favorite sport growing up was, well, when I was much younger, before high school, it was soccer. I mean, during high school, it was soccer because in Vietnam, that's what the kids played. We didn't have football, we didn't have baseball, we had soccer. So yeah, growing up, I played soccer for my high school. I made varsity soccer, enjoyed
Mm.
soccer. Now I love baseball. Because
Mm.
my legs aren't that young anymore to play soccer, but I can certainly swing a bat.
But before I let you go, can you teach me how to say we are family in Vietnamese? Now I have to learn from you.
We are family. I love that. We are family. We are Arya family, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are family in Vietnamese is chúng ta là gia đình. Chúng ta
Chúng ta.
means we.
Uh-huh. Chúng ta.
Là,
Là.
perfect. That means our.
Uh-huh.
Gia đình,
Gia đình.
perfect.
Okay.
Gia đình is family.
Chúng ta là gia đình.
Yes. Chúng ta là gia đình.